Peace be with you, chosen one. I invite you to settle into this moment of stillness, to let the noise of the world drift into the background, and to realize that you are currently standing within a sacred circle of divine protection that no weapon, seen or unseen, can penetrate. There is a specific frequency to this message, one of deep sobriety and spiritual clarity, because we are entering a season where the hidden things are being pulled into the light, not by human hands, but by the irresistible force of spiritual law. You have felt it, haven't you? That subtle vibration in your spirit, that quiet alarm that has been ringing in the chambers of your heart for quite some time now. You are not losing your mind. You're gaining your sight. You are being given the eyes to see through the veils of smiles that do not reach the eyes and words that carry a hidden weight. For a long time you have navigated the world with a pure heart, assuming that everyone operated with the same integrity that you do, but your walk as a chosen one requires a different level of discernment. You have been targeted not because of your flaws, but because of the luminosity of your soul. There have been those in your periphery, individuals you may have even shared your table with, who began to view your light as a threat to their darkness. They gathered in the quiet hours in the spaces where they thought the divine was not listening, to orchestrate a narrative meant to diminish you, to isolate you, and ultimately to unalive the very purpose for which you were placed on this earth. They spoke your name in rooms you hadn't even entered yet, sowing seeds of discord and trying to build a cage out of whispers. But there is a fundamental truth they failed to recognize. The chosen are not self-appointed. They are heaven-appointed. To scheme against you is to petition the highest court in existence for one's own downfall. As you listen to these words, feel the tension leaving your shoulders, for the verdict has already been passed. The Father is now moving in a way that is both gentle to you and terrifying to those who have persisted in malice. The police of the Spirit, those angelic enforcers of truth, have been dispatched to serve the warrants of justice. We will now explore the 7 points of this divine exposure, understanding how the confession is manifesting and why your safety is absolute. Point 1, the heavy atmosphere of the unspoken confession. In the spiritual realm, guilt has a specific weight and a specific scent. And once you learn to recognize it, you can never unlearn it. It is dense, heavy, and almost metallic in nature, and it suffocates the one carrying it long before it ever reaches you. As you move through your daily life, you will begin to notice that those who participated in hidden schemes, silent betrayals, or quiet intentions against your joy can no longer maintain a steady inner frequency in your presence. Their energy starts to fracture, their composure thins. This is the first stage of confession, and it rarely begins with words. It begins energetically. When you enter a room, conversations shift. The air feels thick around certain individuals, not because the environment has changed, but because truth has entered it. Your presence, anchored in alignment, becomes a mirror that reflects what they have been avoiding within themselves. They are suddenly forced to sit with their own internal noise. You may notice subtle but telling physical reactions: tightened jaws, shallow breathing, nervous fidgeting, sudden distractions, or an inability to remain still. Eye contact becomes unbearable for them, because eyes are gateways and yours carry clarity. When they flinch, look away, or abruptly leave the space, it is not rejection of you, it is rejection of themselves. The light you carry does not accuse, but it exposes, and exposure feels like fire to those still hiding behind masks. The longer they remain in your proximity, the more the mask begins to burn, peel, and crack. This is when the divine applies pressure, not as punishment, but as correction. There is a constriction that settles in their chest, a spiritual weight that makes it difficult to breathe while maintaining deception. Lies require constant energy to sustain, and when truth is near, that energy demand becomes unbearable. Their nervous system knows it, their spirit knows it. They may feel restless at night, anxious without reason, or compelled to replay memories they tried to bury. This is not coincidence. This is a spiritual consequence. Their psyche begins to fracture under the weight of unresolved guilt, and the scheme that once felt clever now feels claustrophobic. They are being backed into a corner where only two exits exist: disappearance or disclosure. Either they slowly remove themselves from your life, creating distance to escape the mirror you represent, or they reach a breaking point where confession becomes the only relief from the crushing internal pressure. This is why you must remain sober, grounded and observant. Do not interfere. Do not soothe their discomfort. Do not offer explanations or soften the truth with unnecessary compassion. Compassion does not mean interference. Allow the divine pressure to complete its work. Intervention delays justice. Silence in this season is alignment. Their inability to look you in the eye is already a confession. Their discomfort is evidence. Their peace has already been forfeited. What they intended to drain from you has rebounded inward, turning their own mind into a courtroom and their conscience into a relentless judge. They plan to unalive your joy, but instead they are slowly suffocating under the weight of their own intentions. You do not need revenge. You do not need vindication. You do not need an apology to move forward. The shift has already occurred. The exposure is active. Truth does not chase, it waits, and guilt always walks itself to the door. Point 2, the restlessness of the night watch. We must understand that the subconscious mind is a gateway through which the divine often communicates the requirements of justice. And when a person violates spiritual law by plotting against someone carrying a clean heart, that gateway becomes activated in ways they cannot control. Those who have plotted against you are discovering that sleep is no longer a sanctuary but a courtroom, a place where silence speaks louder than any accusation ever could. While you rest under divine covering, their nights are filled with agitation, sudden awakenings, and an unshakable sense that something is watching, measuring, and recording. This is not coincidence, and it is not imagination. The mind that schemes cannot truly rest because it must continuously rehearse deception, track inconsistencies, and anticipate the moment of exposure. The divine is now magnifying this internal chaos. At precisely the hours when the veil between realms is thinnest, they are jolted awake with your presence lingering in their thoughts, your name surfacing uninvited, and their bodies reacting with racing hearts and cold sweat. Their nervous system knows before their ego admits it that a line has been crossed. Each time they close their eyes, images arise unfiltered. Your sincerity, your restraint, and the moments you could have retaliated but chose silence, contrasted sharply against their own hidden motives. This contrast is unbearable to the conscience. What they are experiencing is not punishment yet. It is interrogation. The higher realms are presenting evidence directly to their inner witness, replaying intentions, conversations, and decisions they assumed were unseen. This is divine mercy in motion, because before justice manifests publicly, it is always offered privately. The Father allows the soul to confront itself first. Repentance is still possible at this stage. Confession is still an option, and humility is still a door not yet closed. That is why their behavior may begin to fracture. You may notice strange, poorly worded messages arriving late at night, half apologies masked as casual check-ins, and emotional fragments that make little sense in daylight. These are pressure leaks. Their spirit is searching for relief, trying to offload guilt without fully surrendering pride. Do not misinterpret this as strength or courage. It is desperation. The night is already doing what confrontation never could. Understand that your stillness is not passive. It is protective alignment. When you refuse to chase explanations, when you decline to demand accountability, you allow divine order to continue uninterrupted. The subconscious does not respond to arguments, but it cannot escape truth. Every attempt they make to distract themselves during the day only intensifies the reckoning at night. Laughter fades, distractions fail, and the silence grows louder. This is how spiritual justice operates, quietly, precisely, without spectacle at first. You are not required to respond, clarify, or reopen doors. Your peace is evidence that the burden was never yours to carry. Let the process complete itself. The same divine presence that grants you rest is instructing their conscience without your involvement. Justice does not rush, and it does not miss. Remain anchored. The night has already begun extracting the confession, and what is exposed in the spirit will eventually surface in the physical world, exactly as ordered, exactly on time. Point 3, the spiritual law of reversed intent. There is an ancient and immutable law that governs the universe, a law written not in ink, but in consequence. What is sent out must return to its point of origin, not as punishment, but as revelation. When a person schemes to unalive the reputation, peace, or stability of a chosen one, they believe they are acting in secrecy, as if the universe is not paying attention. In truth, they are casting a net into the vast sea of life, assuming it will entangle you and drag you under. But because you live under the canopy of grace, that net is not woven from ordinary threads. It is made of reflective spiritual material, a mirror rather than a weapon. It cannot attach itself to you because there is no hook of malice, envy, or deceit in your heart for it to catch. You did not meet darkness with darkness, nor hatred with retaliation. And so the net, unable to cling to your spirit, is now being pulled back toward the hands that threw it. This is why you are witnessing a quiet but undeniable reversal. Those who tried to distort your image are now struggling to hold their own together. Those who whispered that you were unstable are experiencing fractures in their own mental clarity, sleepless nights, emotional volatility, and an unexplainable loss of inner balance. Those who worked behind the scenes to isolate you, to turn friends into strangers and allies into skeptics, are now discovering that their own circles are shrinking, that trust around them is dissolving, and that the very people they relied on are questioning their integrity. This is not coincidence, and it is not random misfortune. This is not karma in the casual secular sense that the world often uses to comfort itself. This is the educational hand of the divine, slow, deliberate, and precise, teaching the soul a lesson it refused to learn gently. The lesson is simple yet severe. You cannot harm what God has marked without first dismantling yourself. The process is not loud or theatrical. It unfolds methodically, like a structure losing one internal support beam at a time. They are watching their own plans collapse like a house of cards, not because you pushed it over, but because it was built on deception. And in that collapse, something deeper is happening. They are being cornered by truth. Conversations they thought would never surface are resurfacing. Motives they buried are being exposed. They are finding themselves compelled to confess, explain, or retreat because the narrative they tried to control no longer obeys them. Meanwhile, you are not required to defend yourself because your silence has already spoken. Your restraint has already testified. Your peace has become evidence. This experience is showing them that you were never a target to be toyed with, never a pawn to be moved for entertainment or ego. You are a living boundary. You are a lesson wrapped in grace. You are a child of the King, not protected because you are perfect, but because your heart chose alignment over corruption. And while they are being brought to a state of forced sobriety, you are being elevated into clarity. What they intended as an ending has become your confirmation. What they meant for destruction has become your witness. The universe is not avenging you. It is correcting the imbalance. And as this correction unfolds, remember this truth: you do not need to celebrate their fall or participate in their unraveling. Your role is simply to remain who you are. The law is already at work, and it never misses its address. Point 4, the intervention of the heavenly enforcement. In the kingdom of God, there are watchers and holy ones whose sole assignment is not comfort or explanation, but order, divine order that does not negotiate with manipulation. These are not symbolic figures. They are executors of balance and guardians of spiritual law. And when a human scheme matures into something corrosive enough to interfere with the trajectory of a chosen one, authorization is given, not debated, not delayed, given. At that point, intervention begins, and it is never loud at first. It is quiet, precise, and almost invisible, like a scalpel cutting exactly where rot has formed. This is why exposure rarely feels dramatic in the beginning. It feels coincidental. Someone unrelated suddenly reaches out. A name you weren't thinking about resurfaces. A sentence you overhear connects fragments that were never meant to touch. This is not chance. This is enforcement. The watchers do not shout. They rearrange reality so that lies collapse under their own weight. Evidence does not need to be chased. It walks toward you. A recording exists that was never supposed to exist. A message is sent to the wrong person at the wrong time. A witness feels an unexplainable pressure to speak, not out of loyalty to you, but because silence has become unbearable to their spirit. This is the universe tightening the room around the guilty. The schemers feel it before they see it. They sense that something has shifted, that conversations no longer feel safe, and that secrecy suddenly feels exposed even when no one is present. That is because anonymity has been revoked. They are learning that there are no private rooms in the spiritual realm, no whispered plans that do not echo upward. Every intention leaves a trace. Every manipulation creates a spiritual fingerprint. And when those fingerprints accumulate, the watchers move. What follows is not revenge, it is unmasking. The very people who once felt united in deception begin to fracture. Trust evaporates. Fear replaces loyalty. One by one, they turn on each other. Not because they have become moral, but because survival instincts override alliance. Confessions begin to surface, not always to authorities, but sometimes to mutual contacts, family members, co-workers, or social circles. The truth leaks in fragments, but fragments are enough. The structure collapses because it was never built on truth to begin with. The chosen one does not need to confront. Silence becomes power. Observation becomes protection. The divine police do not require your participation, they require your alignment. This is why you are often instructed internally to remain still, to not react prematurely, to not announce what you know. Because timing is part of justice. Exposure too early gives manipulators time to adjust their masks. Exposure at the appointed moment removes all exits at once. When the collapse finally becomes visible, the schemers are stunned, not because they were caught, but because they cannot understand how. They replay conversations, retrace steps, and search for the moment you must have found out, unaware that it was never about information, it was about permission. Once divine permission was granted, the universe itself began to testify. Systems shifted, people spoke, accidents aligned, and the truth stood alone when the noise cleared. This is how divine justice operates, not with chaos, but with inevitability. When the watchers move, there is no argument, no appeal, and no hiding place, only revelation, only truth, only the restoration of order. Point 5, the disintegration of the false narrative. Every scheme requires a false narrative, a carefully engineered story designed to invert reality, to paint the chosen one as the villain, while crowning the schemer as the wounded innocent. And for a long time, this illusion appears convincing because it feeds on emotion rather than truth. But understand this clearly. A lie is never built on stone. It is built on rotten wood, and rotten wood always collapses under the weight of time. You're now standing at the precise moment when that structure begins to crack. You may sense it in subtle ways before you see it openly, the sudden hesitation in conversations, the awkward pauses when your name is mentioned, the quiet shift in energy when others realize that what they were told does not align with what they observe. The lies that once seemed powerful are no longer sticking, no longer landing, no longer producing the reaction the schemer depended on. People who once absorbed whispers without question are now approaching you with curiosity rather than judgment, not accusing but asking, because the fruit of your life, your consistency, your integrity, your endurance, does not match the distorted image they were fed. This is not coincidence. This is divine timing. The divine releases what can only be described as holy intelligence, a discernment that cannot be argued with or manipulated, into the atmosphere around you. Minds begin to awaken not through confrontation, but through observation. And eyes begin to see, not because you defended yourself, but because truth has a frequency that eventually overrides noise. As this false narrative disintegrates, panic enters the heart of the one who created it. Panic is always the signal that control has been lost. The schemer realizes that the story no longer protects them, that the audience is no longer sympathetic, and that silence is becoming louder than their explanations. This panic becomes the catalyst for exposure, because when lies fail, the liar instinctively tries to manage the collapse. This is where the partial confession appears. They approach you or others with statements that sound humble on the surface, but are strategically incomplete. I may have said something, but it wasn't like that, or things got misunderstood. Or I was hurt too. This is not repentance. It is damage control. It is the subconscious attempt to soften the fall, to appear honest without fully surrendering the truth. Do not engage emotionally with this moment. Do not correct, argue, or seek closure through dialogue. The partial confession is not meant for you. It is meant to signal that the full truth is already pressing against the walls of their conscience. When half-truths surface, full exposure is no longer far behind. The divine does not rush this process because a rushed revelation can be dismissed, but a slow, undeniable unveiling cannot be denied. Influence begins to drain from them quietly. Their words carry less weight. Their emotional leverage dissolves. Their presence loses authority. Meanwhile, your name begins to be restored without announcement, without self-promotion, and without explanation. You will notice people treating you differently, respecting you instinctively, and trusting you without knowing exactly why. This is restoration by alignment, not defense. The divine does not vindicate you by making noise. It vindicates you by making truth unavoidable. What was hidden collapses under its own contradictions, and what was misrepresented is corrected by time itself. You are not witnessing revenge. You are witnessing rebalancing. The false narrative served its temporary purpose, but its expiration date has arrived. Remain still. Remain grounded. Let the collapse complete itself. What is being erased now is not just their influence over others. It is their imagined authority over your story. Your reputation is not being rebuilt by human hands. It is being restored by a power that does not need permission, explanation, or validation. And when this process finishes, there will be no debate about who you truly are. Only quiet clarity and undeniable truth. Point 6, the physical signs of spiritual treason. The body cannot easily hold the frequency of betrayal without eventually revealing the strain, because deception is not just a moral act. It is a physiological and spiritual burden that presses inward over time. When individuals choose to harbor schemes against you, especially when those schemes are rooted in envy, resentment, or a desire to siphon what does not belong to them, something subtle but irreversible begins to happen within them. Their nervous system stays in a low-grade state of tension. Their mind loops around half-truths and concealment, and their spirit slowly disconnects from its natural rhythm. This is why you may begin to notice their physical health shifting, or their once present glow dimming. It is not imagination nor coincidence. It is a lesser-known spiritual law that to plot against a chosen soul is to wage war against one's own life force. The energy required to sustain deceit must be taken from somewhere, and it is always borrowed from vitality, creativity, passion, and inner peace. Over time, these individuals begin to look tired in a way that sleep cannot fix. Their eyes, once bright, begin to dull, not from age, but from inner fragmentation. Their posture collapses slightly. Their voice loses conviction, and their presence feels heavy or hollow. This is the body confessing what the mouth refuses to say. Spiritually, they are becoming unalive, not in a dramatic sense, but in the quiet erosion of joy, curiosity, and purpose. They may still function, still speak, and still smile, but something essential is withdrawn because they have severed themselves from the source of truth. Truth is not merely honesty, it is alignment, and alignment is what allows energy to circulate freely through a being. When alignment is broken, energy stagnates, and stagnation always decays. This is why they may appear haggard, irritable, or strangely empty, even when their external life seems intact. The secret they are carrying does not sit passively inside them. It feeds on them. It eats at their peace in moments of silence, disrupts their sleep, and whispers accusations into their subconscious. Their body absorbs this pressure, translating spiritual dissonance into physical symptoms, emotional volatility, or a slow loss of vitality. This is not punishment imposed from outside. It is a consequence unfolding from within. This is also why the divine presses toward confession, not as a demand for humiliation, but as an act of mercy. Confession is release. It is the only way to stop the internal hemorrhaging of energy that betrayal causes. Without it, the weight of their treasons continues to manifest in their physical reality, growing heavier, more visible, and more inescapable with time. You are not meant to witness this with satisfaction or superiority. Your role is not to gloat, expose, or accelerate their downfall. Your role is to remain sober, grounded, and compassionate, understanding that what you are observing is a soul learning through consequence. Compassion does not mean intervention, and it does not mean rescuing them from what they must face. It means recognizing that their suffering is self-generated, that justice is already in motion, and that you are not required to carry anger to validate your worth. By staying aligned, you protect your own life force and allow truth to do its quiet, relentless work. Trusting that what is out of balance will always reveal itself, and what is rooted in light does not need to defend its existence. Point 7. The final sealing of your peace. The ultimate end of this entire process is the permanent establishment of your peace, not a temporary relief, not a momentary victory, but a deep, immovable stillness that settles into your spirit and never leaves. The divine has allowed you to see this scheme, not to distress you, not to keep you in fear, and not to burden your heart with bitterness, but to reveal a higher truth, that you are untouchable. What was hidden had to be revealed so that your soul could finally rest. When the confession comes out, whether spoken through their own lips or forced into the open by the quiet but relentless police of circumstances, you will feel a profound finality. It will not be dramatic or chaotic. It will be calm. It will feel as though a heavy door has been closed and locked behind you, sealing off an entire chapter that no longer has access to your life. You will realize that the people who were scheming to unalive your destiny, to delay your calling, to drain your energy, and to quietly undermine your purpose have already removed themselves from your future. They cannot follow you where you are going because their frequency cannot survive there. This exposure is not punishment, it is purification. It is a cleansing of your inner circle, a divine pruning that ensures you enter your next season lighter, clearer, and uncompromised. Nothing accidental is happening here. Every revelation, every uncomfortable truth, and every moment of realization has been strategically timed to protect what is coming next. You are being given a sober clarity about who people really are, not who you hoped they were, not who they pretended to be, but who they revealed themselves to be under pressure. This clarity is one of the greatest gifts a chosen one can ever receive, because it frees your energy from illusion. No longer will you overextend yourself for those who secretly celebrated your delays. No longer will you pour life into relationships that were quietly draining your spirit. No longer will you confuse familiarity with loyalty. The fog has lifted, and with it, the emotional weight you have been carrying without even realizing it. The case is closed. The evidence is in. The Father has vindicated you, not by humiliating others publicly, but by removing their influence privately. This is how divine justice often works: clean, precise, and irreversible. As you move forward, let the memory of this protection deepen your faith. Remember how you were shielded when you did not even know you were under attack. Remember how situations exposed themselves without you having to explain, argue, or defend your truth. This is proof that you do not have to fight battles that were never meant to be yours. You only have to stand still and watch the salvation of the Lord unfold in real time. Your peace is not fragile anymore. It has been earned, fortified, and sealed. From this place forward, You walk lighter, wiser, and more protected than ever, not because you hardened your heart, but because you trusted divine order. What tried to harm you has lost access. What tried to confuse you has been silenced. What tried to delay you has been cut off. This is not the end of your story. It is the end of interference. And from this stillness, your next chapter begins. In conclusion, chosen one, take heart. The whispers of the dark are no match for the shout of the light. The schemes that were meant to end you have only served to refine you and to expose those who are not worthy of your presence. Either they will confess and seek the mercy of the truth, or the very laws of the universe will act as the police to ensure justice is served. You are safe, you are loved, you are protected. Sleep tonight in the deepest peace, for the watchers are on guard, and your victory is written in the stars. Peace be with you.